Good evening. Before we start tonight's program, this is a reminder that this episode will address various topics related to mental health, addiction, and a reminder about multiple sclerosis. These may be sensitive to some of our viewers. Viewer discretion, as always, is advised. We remind you to please consult your doctor, your mental health professional, your outreach group, your sponsor or specialist before adopting any change to your dietary, physical, and or mental health regime. If you're looking for options to turn to with respect to mental health, contact SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. The service is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, and is a confidential free information service for individuals and family members facing such stressors. Importantly, if you're feeling suicidal crisis or emotional distress, and need to be put in touch with a crisis center, call the Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 1-800-273-TALK. That's 1-800-273-8255, or go to suicidepreventionlifeline.org. You can also text word home to 741-741. Those resources are also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Before we move on to the MS disclaimer, the reason why that disclaimer is difficult tonight is because that is very much what we're going to be talking about for half the program. So again, those numbers will be talked about again in a little while. 1-800-273-TALK. Also 1-800-662-HELP. Let's also talk about something that's been paramount in my mind for the last 9 months, and that of multiple sclerosis, demyelination. It's basically something that has really become something that I have realized how much it is a physical and mental strain on this life. And we'll talk a bit more about what I mean by that in a little while. But before we do that, the National MS Society is a collective of passionate individuals who want to do something about MS now, to move together towards a world free of multiple sclerosis. Multiple sclerosis is comprised of unpredictable and often disabling flare-ups of the central nervous system. Such flare-ups disrupt the flow of information within the brain and between the brain and the body. The National MS Society is the largest private funder of MS researchers in the world, investing more than $1 billion to date. MS stops people from moving, but the National MS Society exists to make sure that MS doesn't. To contact the National MS Society, please call 1-800-344-4867. Once again, 1-800-344-4867, or go to their website at nationalmssociety.org. Also of note, we are still raising money for the National MS Society through A Venture to a Cure's fundraising page at rebrand.ly/A Venture to a Cure. This effort will last through the end of the month. This was a page that was created in conjunction of the virtual MS Walk that took place in the beginning of May. Thank you for all of you who have donated money to this amazing organization. It touches me and over the 1 million people in this country that have multiple sclerosis in so many ways, and we appreciate all of you. And on that, let's begin. On the Tuesday show, we talked about the main components about realizing that it is time to make a change. One of the things we talked about on the Tuesday show was the need to plan. And the thing we must remember is this, that if we fail to plan, then we're planning to fail. Tonight, we're going to talk about two different kinds of plans. Two kinds of plans that are resonant in my mind as I've gone through this journey the last 2.5 years. This is the Venture Forward. Good evening, or good morning, or good afternoon, wherever you may be, and welcome to the Venture Forward. I am John Venturini, a recovering addict of overeating, obesity, alcoholism, and compulsive gambling, and it is an honor and pleasure to see all of you tonight on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch. This one is going to be a tough episode. I'm just throwing that out there right now before I show any information, talk about anything. This is going to be a tough one, but it's also a very important one to talk to. It's one where, honestly, that's part of the journey and it's part of this project. And if I don't talk about these things, then I don't think I'm doing the project its complete truth. So we're going to do that in moments, but we'll say hi to a couple of you that are on right now on Facebook and YouTube, and that of Sarah. Sarah says, okay, I admit it. I totally screwed up about your live times. They're all over my calendar, and they all seem to be wrong. Sarah, I'm glad you asked. The times for the Venture Forward are 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and VF Talks is 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. It was a time change that started a week or so ago. And then Marilyn says, good evening, JV. Hope you're doing well, with a wave and 4 hearts. And I wave back, and my heart is to you as well. It always takes a quote, one quote, by a very wise man that made you realize, okay, we have something to talk about. And we talk about the very title of this episode. Failure to plan is planning to fail. And there is a brilliant man who said that. It'd be Benjamin Franklin. Wow, I knew I was going to do this. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. That's his quote. Now we've turned it to failure to plan is planning to fail, and that sort of thing. But the essence is true. We need to come up with a plan, especially when we're pushed with life's most difficult situations, and basically when the environment's difficult as well. We need to remember that. If you plan to fail, you're planning to fail. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. I knew I was going to do that. If you fail to plan, you're planning to fail. That's exactly right. We need to come up with a plan, especially when you think about the story I've gone down, as far as the obesity, as far as the alcoholism, as far as the compulsive gambling, as far as all of that. We need a plan. So we're going to talk about exactly what kind of plans we're talking about this evening. One is very much form and function of addiction recovery. The other one is a bit more grim. We're going to talk about both of them, in the sense that we talk about relapse prevention plans. Then we also talk about safety plans. Relapse prevention plans, it's just something that you learn through your various addiction groups about coming up with the right plan, coming up with that sort of protection as far as how you're going to work through these things. A safety plan is when your mind is in not the greatest of places and you have really a bad outlook on things. And a safety plan is something that you could work through with your therapist or a dear friend or what have you. But a safety plan is very important. And we'll talk about how those two plans are really correlated and how one basically forms the other in just mere minutes. And then, of course, we'll take your questions and comments. A relapse prevention plan is very important when you've gone through the situation where you realize it's time to take action. You realize that you've hit a bottom. You realize that you're at a certain point where you cannot live that existence anymore with that addiction, whether it is alcoholism, whether it is overeating, obesity, whether it is gambling, whether it is narcotics, whatever it is, any of that. To come up with a relapse prevention plan is very important. It's just as important as if you're doing the steps, coming up with an inventory. doing all of that. And at some point within the next few weeks, we'll talk about the steps as well. But a relapse prevention plan is very important. When your mind is not in the greatest of places, and you realize through meditation, and realize that through realizing that there was really a remiss, really just something that was missing along the way that caused you to those behaviors, then it's also a question of coming up with a safety plan. So let's talk about that. A relapse prevention plan is usually 5 steps. It's basically taking time to do that self-assessment and reflection, something that we have not been, we've always been talking about how important that facet is in trying to come up with a better perspective on life, trying to clear our mind, trying to get out of the rigmarole of the ground level for a second and just look at things, or not even look at things, from a higher perspective, just being removed. If for 10 minutes, if for 20 minutes, if for whatever. That is important. It's part of our self-care, as we talked about in the preceding episode. We also need to be very cognizant of the warning signs and triggers. And honestly, there are plenty of them. When you have a joint addiction, in my case, that is 3 deep, we have plenty of triggers. We have plenty of warning signs, and we have to be on top of these things. If we don't do that, we stand a chance of being in a very dangerous place. Speaking of, we have to plan for the worst. That's just part of it. We have to come up with a plan in case things don't work out well. And just because you fall off doesn't mean it's over. You have to come up with a plan to get back on the train, get back on the track, to keep doing the darn thing. A relapse happens. Fortunately, in my case, as far as my sobriety, haven't seen a relapse. As far as the gambling, haven't seen a relapse. But I have to come up with a plan in case that happens. Going back to the thought that failure to plan is planning to fail, right? Right. Next piece of this is getting the involvement of others. Coming up with a very, very dear social network, social circle around you that can help you. You have to. We will not be able to do it by ourselves. If the last 18, 19 months haven't taught us that, we cannot do it by ourselves. Now, the way we go about it is completely different now. It's a lot more virtual. It's a lot more web-based. It's a lot more Zoom and Teams meetings and whatnot. But those pieces don't go away. Our community makes us stronger, and we make our community strong. Those two work together. And then the last piece of this, of course, is setting goals for a healthy lifestyle, which I don't know about you, but I think, working on a massive weight loss and not drinking anymore is definitely, a healthy lifestyle is definitely part of the thought. But then there's also the question of, how do I get there? What sort of techniques am I using to get there? We talk about the diet. We talk about the exercise. We talk about the meditation. We talk about the therapy. All of these things are important, but then we could set goals too. What are we planning to do, right? Whether it's a weight loss goal question or any sort of other question that is basically bound to that. We set goals for ourselves. If it's a question of physical fitness, maybe you want to run a 5K. I know I certainly did a 5K earlier in the year, and I want to run a 10K. And then I want to run a half marathon, and I want to run a full marathon. I know it sounds a bit out there, but it's something that's been on my board since, I don't know, the first or second month that I've been down this journey. So I definitely have goals. And they, if you put a goal out there, at least you're keeping yourself honest to it, right? If you come close to the goal, then the journey to get to the goal is worth it. I'm going to go back to Maine for a second. Got a quick story to talk to. Um, I was doing some strength training today, and I had a bit of a meltdown. I wouldn't say a meltdown, but I would say, an upset moment. I was just doing some bench pressing work. Just basic bench pressing work. Nothing too egregious. There's some people that watch this show that do massive amounts of bench pressing and weight training. And you have my complete and utter respect and just admiration. I admire all of you. My upper body, admittedly so, very weak. Very weak. It's getting stronger, but over time, I work towards that. Today, I was doing a bench press of about 100 pounds. And I could get about 5 or 6 reps in, and then my arm faltered. And I don't know for what reason it made me feel that bad, but for the rest of the day, like an hour or two, I felt horrible about it. Now, did I go back and finish a bench press of a smaller weight? Absolutely. Did I finish bench pressing stuff? Yeah, of course I did. But I beat myself up, and it's hard to dismiss old behavior when we talk about that sort of self-defeating prophecy, that sort of self-defeating sort of mindset. It's very hard to get rid of, especially when it's been part of our life for a very, very long time. But that said, I did complete the set. And I did complete many other exercises. And I ended up doing plenty of cardio as well. So there's nothing to be ashamed of. I'm doing things to help me get to a goal. And yet it was that small little thing that had me bothered for a while. Going to the comments real quick. Over on YouTube, it's Elo, Dr. Elo. You say hello and I say Elo. Elo. Or you say goodbye, I say Elo. See, I'm getting everything mixed up tonight. You say goodbye, I say Elo. Oh, man. Hope you're doing well. Easy over on YouTube says, good morning, JV. And comments section, hope to find you well. Hope to find you well, Easy. Hope you're doing well over there. And Marilyn says hi to Elo. So, first moment of honesty. Not reaching a bench pressing sort of, just trying to get through 2 complete sets and the way it played havoc on my mind for a few minutes. And maybe an hour or 2. Maybe that's why I went a little harder on the elliptical than I did. Just saying. Anyhow. So yeah, setting goals for a healthy lifestyle and really just being honest and true to yourself and being fair to yourself. In other words, don't do what I did this afternoon. Be fair to yourself. Realize you're doing incredible things. March towards those things. And there will be days that your muscles are not going to be as strong as they were the day previously. You keep on marching to it. The other thing I have to remember is, I don't know, I have MS. I might be dealing with an MS day. I don't know. It's not also something that I was quick to reach out to my neurologist about either. But I have to be fair to myself. You have to be fair to yourself. We all have to be fair to ourselves. Easy says, that's where it begins, buddy. Telling on yourself gives you honesty and humility. Absolutely being observant of it, for sure. But then also realizing that there is a way through it, there's a way around it, and we are doing the best possible thing we can. Giving up easy would be not great. If I said, okay, that's it. I can't do this, then I'm done. I still did it. I just did it at a lower weight. And the next time I do it, whether it is tomorrow or the weekend or next week, I'll be trying it again. Who knows? Maybe I'll be trying it at a higher weight. But we keep at it. Thank you, Easy. Appreciate that. So with respect to my relapse prevention plan, those are basically what I use. For meditation, I use Headspace. But then there's also some Rain on Leaves for sleeping at night that I use to help me. As far as journaling every day, day one, lately it's been a lot more entries in day one because I feel like there's a lot more to talk about. So it's definitely been part of it. But then it also talks to realizing what our plan is and trying to work around it, being cognizant of these things. But then that's where therapy comes in as well. At some point, we'll talk about internal family systems. That is a to-do. It's just not getting done tonight. We'll talk about it within the next few weeks. IFS therapy has definitely been something that I resonated to. It's definitely has helped me and continues to help me. And at 9 a.m. tomorrow will continue to help me again. So, yeah. As far as, preparing for the worst, there's this plan and then there's a safety plan. And this plan is important in the sense of the generality. But then the safety plan is important as far as when things get dire. Easy says this: I did something different. Don't use the word try, do it. If I'm not going to do it, I shut up until I'm ready and then I do it. Yes. Yeah. I think if we throw out the word try, that gives us a chance for us not to do it. You're absolutely right. I know where you're coming from that perspective. Just because it didn't go down at the 100-pound weight, then we do it at the 75-pound weight. But we still do it and we get it done. That's absolutely right. Just because it didn't work to the heavy expectation for someone who has a weaker upper body doesn't mean that we go completely out of what the exercise actually is. So, yeah. We do it. We march forward and we do it. As far as the recovery groups, that's my groups. Those are the groups I basically, revolve around that help me, right? They help me without question. Recovering Addicts over James, Real Recovery with Nicole. There's a bunch of them that are out there. And when we were locked down and we couldn't go to AA meetings or OA meetings or GA meetings, we had that. So recovery groups remain resonant as far as battling addiction. The last piece of this, as far as getting to those goals, is the diet tracking and the exercise tracking. For the diet tracking, I use Lose It. Put in all my food, all my intake. I've been doing so. It's going to be almost 1,000 days soon. And then the exercise tracking, which has been very important as far as iFit and Pacer, but then there's also an exercise element to Lose It as well. I'm going back to Maine for a second. Jamie over on YouTube says, "Oh my God, I'm so late." Hi, Jamie. How are you? Hope you're doing well. And then Easy says, "Even 40 pounds, you're doing it." Yeah, you are. It's funny you say it that way, because if we go back to January of 2019, I knew it was going to be a long process. You don't lose that much weight in a day. You don't lose that much weight in a week or a month or a year. It takes time. But we have to be understanding of that. And we have to be fair to ourselves. And yeah, should we be more doing and saying we're going to do this, we're going to do that? Yes. But we also have to be fair to ourselves as well. So that's relapse. That's the relapse prevention plan. These are the things and the aspects we have to be cognizant of. The other piece of this is a little darker. And there's a reason why I talk about SAMHSA and the Suicide Prevention Lifeline before most of these episodes. Because when I was dealing with a lot of this, before I started the venture in 2020, but also when I got the MS diagnosis, there were moments where I was really, really down on it. Was there ideation? No, but the thought was in the back of my mind. And I've never talked about that before on the show. But Yeah, yeah, definitely the thought of suicide was definitely there. Not in great number, not in vast amount, but it was there. So much so to the point where that's where, a safety plan really came into play. So tonight we're going to talk about what comprises a safety plan, but then we're going to talk about my safety plan. Because again, this is an open and honest and transparent journaling of my journey. So we're going to do that. Safety plans, as found on suicidepreventionlifeline.org. There are 6 elements to a safety plan. 1, identifying warning signs and triggers. The second element is the coping strategies that we would use. The third piece would be the people and social settings that provide beneficial and benevolent distraction. The fourth piece would be people and resources that can be asked for help. The fifth piece would be professionals and agencies in case of crisis, 2 of which we talk about all the time in this show. We'll talk about it again in just mere minutes. And then the sixth one is who and what makes our environment safe and what is most important. So that is what comprises a safety plan, especially when you need to come up with a safety plan. So let's talk about that. What were my warning signs? And again, these are things I have not talked about to many of you about, but this is it. This is the plan. This is the list. Especially the year that we were in a world where we were by ourselves, given everything else I was going through, separation, an audit, continuing to work to lose weight, sobriety, not compulsively gambling anymore. There was a lot of crying, plenty of crying. There were moments where I was feeling very antsy. There were moments where I was feeling cantankerous, where my patience was at a very, very low amount. I had no patience whatsoever. Agitation, you betcha. Inability to stay focused, where I had maybe the attention span of 3 to 5 seconds and then my mind would wander. Yeah. A lack of desire, constant sleep, where there have been periods of time where I just want to sleep. Yeah. Thoughts of addiction. So those behaviors that are on that board, thoughts of them. Yeah. Those things would pop up when things were really bad. Fortunately, never relapsed on those things. But the thought, basically I have to identify it, and it's on the list. The inability to stay content. Like, we talked about that on Tuesday, in the fact that there was a lack of satiation. Well, yeah, there was a lack of satiation. That was still playing a role in this. Now, one may argue, how much of that, obviously a lot of that list is from 2020, but then some of it reared itself when demyelination number 2 and the MS diagnosis was diagnosed. So there is the mental and neurological impact of that. It's hard to say what is the MS and the demyelination versus what is actually addiction and other things that are going on. And then, of course, rumination, meaning going back to the thought of not being able to stay focused and taking on 19 things at once and just letting them fly as they do. Those are the warning signs and triggers. And they wouldn't all come up at once, but they would come up. So that's why it's in the plan. So how do we cope? 8 things on the list. 2 should come as no surprise. Well, maybe the whole entire list wouldn't come as a surprise to anyone who knows me, but 5-7-5 breathing, inhaling for 5, holding for 7, exhaling for 5. That's important. especially when things get really, really tough. The 575 breathing really plays a role in this. As far as a dry mouth, drinking water always helps. Writing down what is on my mind, so journaling, even if it's outside of just doing the 2 or 3 times a day I journal, just making sure I take note of what's going on. Watching movies or game shows. Sarah, you know exactly about the game shows, knowing how much I know about game shows left, right, and sideways. Watching things that make me laugh. Walking, working out, driving. Those are the 8 things that I use to cope in the moment. And it helps. Should it be a broader list? Absolutely. But for me, those are the solid 8 that I use when those triggers play. Going back to Maine for a second. This is really tough to talk about. Like, I, to have it together in this episode and talking about all this, I just want to let you know this is hard. So if I seem not clear and having that normal delivery, just understand that this is tough. So bear with me for the next 10-15 minutes if you don't mind. Those are the coping strategies. As far as helpful people and social settings that help us, we have the benevolent distractions of the friends and groups across various social circles. I am so blessed to have met a lot of people within the live streamers and other groups within the last year and a half. They really have helped me. Without question, they have helped me. People who can help is the same list we talked about as far as the prevention of relapse. So those 2 lists play together. What gets added to that list is the emergency list of friends and family. Having a list of 5-6 people that you have their number on that list in case things get rough. And then as far as crisis help, there is SAMHSA. 1-800-662-HELP. It's 1-800-662-4357. Therapist, which if you need a new therapist, psychologytoday.com. But I have a therapist I'm very, very happy to have and has really been a very strong sounding board, champion, advisor, etc. That's helped me. A call to the doctor and also a call to the Prevention Lifeline in that of 1-800-273-TALK. Again, that number is if things get really bad. And also there's the ability of texting TALK to 741-741. The good news is I have never had to do that. I have called SAMHSA once. And I've obviously from a therapist, I have a therapist I talk to all the time. And my doctor, I've never went to my doctor in the acute when things got bad. But my doctor is on my list for sure. I'm going to go back to Maine for a second. Easy says the best thing for me to get out of those situations is to get out of myself and help struggling people. That way I feel useful and helpful. Yeah. That talks back to the community, building the community we have. What we provide others is amazing in what they provide us because we recover, to use LT's term, we do recover better together. So yeah, you're spot on. Marilyn says, just breathe, JV, and we're here for you. Thank you. Thank you, Marilyn. Jamie says, agreed, Marilyn. You know how to reach me, JV. Yep. Yeah, I do, Jamie. And Sammy over on YouTube says, hey, JV. Hey, Sammy, how are you? Hope you're doing well tonight. Okay. So going back to what those helpful people and social settings are, those are definitely them. They play a role in our recovery. They play a role in when times are tough. So we talk about recovery, but we also talk about that of a safety plan as well. That's why the two lists, again, are very much the same, with just the addition of certain things to it. I guess the one other thing, I realized I didn't have a slide for this, is really constructing an idea of what is most important to us, what we gravitate to, and really what is the most important thing in this life of ours. I'm going to take a moment out to talk about that. And this is not anything I haven't talked about before, but I will say this. When we were dealing with what we were dealing with last year, in March of 2000, March of 2020. Wow, I went 20 years in the past. March of 2020, February 2020. It was a very curious time, but also a very scary time. As states and municipalities and countries started coming up with lockdown plans and whatnot, it went from scary to very scary. Especially when you were going down the road of cleaning up your health, cleaning up your diet, trying to remove a massive amount of weight, continue to be sober, basically, you know that there is no world with it. You know what a world with it was. So remaining true to that. And then, given the first couple months into the whole wonderment of the Backstreet Boys reunion tour, getting a piece of registered mail from Washington saying that you're being audited and realizing that you have a problem outside of the fact that you were separated from October of the year before. So October 19, you're separated, and then now they're auditing you. To say things were tough is an understatement. They're beyond tough. But it also goes back to something Easy was saying before, too. Doesn't mean we quit. Doesn't mean we try. We keep doing. We keep doing what's right. Because when we talk about something that is sobriety, something that is a healthy lifestyle, a healthy diet, healthy exercise, not gambling, doing things that are financially prudent, we are doing the best we can for ourselves. And when we do the best thing we can for ourselves, we do the best thing for the people that are around us. The people that are in our circle, the people that are in our community. You get the idea. It was very tough, though, to start that, continue that, and push through it when everything else was going on. I poured out all the alcohol in this house because I was afraid of teetering off of that. Was I glad I did it? You darn straight I did. You darn straight I am. You darn straight I'm glad it's gone. But those are some of the really tough decisions, and really just, why didn't you do it in the beginning? Of course, that's obviously a thought that ruminates in the top of my head. But yeah, these are things that when we march towards something, we march towards it. We don't try it, we do it. Easy, you're going to be quoted at least 3 or 4 more times tonight, and bravo to you, man. So with all that going on, and the fact that we weren't meeting recovery groups in person, there wasn't an AA meeting for me to go to in a face-to-face. We reach out for recovery groups. But in that, knowing that I have basically done something that is extraordinary as far as my diet and not drinking and my sobriety, I know that there's a story to be said there too. That's where the journaling became very important. That's where eventually, by meeting some really great friends in the streaming community, that's when this became a very important thing. I would say very much a very important thing in this life. So much so that I'm heading to a summit, a convention for it in a week and change. All of you are very much the strength of that plan. We talk about family for a second. We talk about, what is family? You're my family. All of you are my family. There are days I try to stay in touch with you on Facebook or what have you, and YouTube, and any sort of circle, folks that are in the recovery groups on Discord. I try to stay in touch with you, and you're my family. And you mean everything to me. You all mean everything to me. Some comments. Sarah says you have more strength of character in your little finger than most people have in their entire body. Sarah, you're an amazing person yourself, and you inspire me to be strong with all your artwork and everything you do. I look up to you. Easy says, I just hoping I don't come across to commentators I know it all. In relating to everything you say, JV, it's effing tough at first for me, but I found a way out and I have inner peace. That's what it's about, Easy. It's about having inner peace. That's why I'm talking about it. I think I'm closer to that inner peace than I have before, outside of not being able to bench press 100 pounds before. Screw that. I'm closer. But yeah, that's what this is about. Absolutely. Easy also says, I believe I could not deal with MS, buddy. I don't downplay your medical condition, man. I wish I can remove it from you. Easy. I don't have MS. MS has me. MS has me. MS has something that will talk about MS 3 times a week, about places we can turn to learn more about MS so we can find a cure for MS. MS has me. Easy says, I love you, John. You're a good soul. I love you too, Easy. I love all of you. I got through it. I got through talking about my relapse prevention plan and my safety plan. I got through it. And I thank you for sticking by and watching all this, because it was important for me to talk about it as much as you are important to me. Okay. Take a moment and then talk about what's coming up. Get through the tough stuff, then we can talk about the fun stuff. Tomorrow, we got VF Talks at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. We got Matt, we got Paul, we got all of you. We got a good time. We got anything and everything. It is the highlight of every Friday. And then next week, we have 2 conversations. One that's going to be pre-recorded, and I actually have a homework assignment for you in a second. And then one's going to be live. Tuesday, we have an interview with a touch therapist. Someone who has been a dear friend of mine for a while, a long while. Known her for God knows how long. Definitely someone, as we talk about self-care and self-help, is definitely someone who knows a lot about that and has a very unique perspective on it, and should be a very, very good conversation on Tuesday. Thursday, we have a conversation with a personal trainer and musician who is a very talented musician. So here's my homework assignment for you. Questions about diet, exercise, personal training, start gathering them. You have my email address, and I'll bring the graphic up real quick. Any of those questions, I plan to interview her Saturday or Sunday. It's going to be pre-recorded. Email me, theventureforward@gmail.com. I'll tell you more about her in the coming days as we start gearing up for that airing, which will be on Thursday. Theventureforward@gmail.com. The reason why that's being pre-recorded is that on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? Thursday? No, it's next Wednesday I'm flying out. See, that's how all the days are melding together, aren't they? Next Thursday, head out to the West Coast. I am heading out to Portland and to the Seattle area for a few days. And then the week after, I head down to Los Angeles for Vid Summit, which is an amazing conference for live streamers and content creators. Really looking forward to that. Really great people are out there. Some very familiar faces that are near and dear to me that are truly my family will be out there, and I can't wait to see them. And then obviously outside of that Thursday episode that's pre-recorded, we will do a Friday VF Talks live from Portland. So that is next week. But don't forget that there will be a VF Talks tomorrow night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. A lot of information. Confused? You won't be. It's on the last slide. Don't worry about it. But until next time, I'm going to say the same thing I say at the end of every Venture Forward in VF Talks, even with some tears in my eye. Stay safe, stay sane, stay strong, stay sober. You're worth it. Have a great night. I'll see you tomorrow night at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific for VF Talks. Fly, be free.